Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Craig Kasper from NYHD and the Institute for Hearing and Balance based in New York City. And we're back with another audiologist at home episode here today. I have Dr. Ariella Naeem with me. What's up,
Hello
Dr.
again.
Naeem?
How are you? Good.
I'm good also. We were talking over each other. That's okay, though.
Yeah.
How's life in the big city?
Quiet. Not surprisingly, but unfortunately very quiet.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's as we're recording these episodes, as most of you know, we're all on lockdown at this point. So this gives us an opportunity to see each other, talk shop, and also share some information about some common questions that we get in our practice on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully add some value to your day as you're sitting at home, educating yourself about hearing and balance related issues. So.
Right.
And also if you guys have questions, you can always email them to us at info@newyorkhearingdoctors.com, info@newyorkhearingdoctors.com. And from what I understand, Dr. Naeem, you have a question for me today.
I do. So we always talk about protecting our hearing and using musicians' earplugs, especially when we're exposed to music, loud noise. But I wanted to talk about the concept of actually overprotecting our hearing. What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting. So I think this comes into play in at least two areas, but I'll focus specifically on the musician side of things first. There's a misconception believing that more hearing protection might be better for someone. So the more reduction in sound or volume that's coming from your environment, the safer you are. Well, yes, that's true. If you're working, say, with power tools, or if you're working with big, heavy machinery, loud, industrial type things. But when it comes to a musician, a really important component of their life on stage or during rehearsals, let's say, is actually being able to monitor what's going on in their environment, not just the other musicians who might be playing with them, but also themselves. So I'll give you an example. If we put too much hearing protection, say on a drummer, and they're not able to successfully or adequately hear the impact of their stick on the drum head or on the hi-hat or on their cymbal, what's going to happen is ultimately they're going to end up hitting their drums harder because they need that feedback to understand exactly what volume they're playing at.
Right.
As a result, over time, yes, they might be protecting their hearing, but what they're going to end up doing is opening themselves up for things like repetitive stress injuries to their wrist, their hands, their elbows, their shoulders, just because they're forced to hit the drums harder.
Interesting.
Same thing occurs, let's say, for someone who's a vocalist. If you cannot hear your voice as well, you're going to end up actually using your voice stronger. As a result, you're going to create stress in the vocal cords as well. That could result in a number of things that could be damaging for the short term and the long term for someone who depends on their voice to make a living, or someone who just enjoys singing. So that's the first part. We don't want to overprotect because ultimately we overcompensate and we open ourselves up for other types of injuries outside of hearing loss. Another thing that comes to mind where we use musicians' earplugs is for someone who might have sound sensitivity issues. I don't want to throw definitions out there of hyperacusis. I don't want to start getting into that necessarily. But for someone who has sound sensitivity issues, we don't want them to continue to put stronger and stronger hearing protection on, because ultimately that's going to make them more and more sensitive over time. Right. It's kind of like we wear sunglasses all the time, even when we don't need it. And then we take off the sunglasses one day and the sun is super bright. It's because our brain ultimately is not used to getting any sort of input at a normal rate, let's say, or a normal volume. So if we overprotect, we end up becoming more sensitive to sound in the long run.
That's really interesting, because I do have several patients who have come to me for sound sensitivity issues, and we've discussed not constantly walking around, especially the city is noisy, but not constantly walking around with earplugs in their ears at all times, especially unfiltered earplugs, because it's just blocking that sound out. And then when they take it out, it increases that sensitivity.
It's
Um,
interesting though, before we continue, what we can do is we can use those filtered musicians earplugs as kind of a therapy in some cases for those particular cases where
mhm,
we can start them with a filter level or a solid plug that is comfortable for them. And then over the course of time, we can desensitize them by gradually reducing the strength of the
right,
filter and gradually reducing the amount of hearing protection till it gets to the point where they don't have anything in their ears anymore. So
right.
it's really just helping the brain desensitize itself over time in a calculated way.
And on that note, I mean, with the filtered earplugs, like you just mentioned, there are different strengths, but is there a way to verify that we're giving someone exactly what they need in certain situations?
That's a really good question. Not all filters are created the same. There's different manufacturers and there's different strengths, as you said. I think one thing that we do that I think a lot of people should do, and I'm not sure
Mhm.
if other practices do, but I'm going to assume that a lot of people do this, is a technology that we use to verify the output of a hearing aid in somebody's ear, where we actually put a little microphone inside the ear canal and we actually measure the reduction that the earplug is giving versus the open ear response, meaning we'll make a measurement with the microphone in the ear first to get a baseline, and then you put the
Mhm.
earplug on top of it, measure again, and then you can actually see the reduction. So it's really the only objective way for us to determine if the earplugs that we're dispensing to someone is actually doing the job that we think it's doing. And it puts the person's mind at ease also, because then they know that they're getting what's advertised on the package.
Absolutely. Interesting. Thank
So
you.
awesome. Well, that was a really interesting question. It was unlike all the other ones we've been dealing with, but I know that that came up in conversation.
Yes,
Appreciate that.
of course.
So again, if you guys have any questions out there, we are always happy to answer them. Our email is info@newyorkhearingdoctors.com. For some reason, I'm having a really hard time articulating my sentences today,
It's
but
okay.
info@newyorkhearingdoctors.com. And appreciate you guys checking in. Appreciate Dr. Naeem.
Of course.
And we will see each other soon. Take care.
Absolutely. Take care.